Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Welcome to the bonus show. There is an article recently in The Guardian by Laura Quinn that explains the history of Hanoi's growth and urban planning. Hanoi in Vietnam. And the city has been booming. Currently, it has a population of about close to 7 million. And the fascinating thing about Hanoi is that it has not developed any slums in the entire city. I guess in the 1980s, it started booming during a period of economic reform. And there are some fascinating things that happened here that led to, or didn't lead to, the creation of slums in such a big city. Basically, I'm going to just read this snippet from the article. It's kind of mind-blowing. Under socialist decree, all citizens were entitled to homes. Private property and construction was heavily restricted. Instead, housing was provided in state-run Soviet-style collective flats, but as growth increased, the new government struggled to maintain these facilities. They could not keep pace with demand. Occupants began building their own additions, often circumventing the permit process. Other residents built illegally on public land. Caught in a bind, having forbidden private construction, but unable to house everyone, the government caved in and allowed private construction, but with minimum standards. Effectively, anyone could build a house on a minimum plot of about 20 square meters, says Michael Di Gregorio of the Asia Foundation, but oversight was limited and a culture of partially and completely illegal construction began to flourish. In the culture of semi-legal construction, if someone built a structure that adhered to minimum standards, it automatically became legal, and for the most part was provided with basic services such as electricity and sanitation. Those flooding from the countryside end up living in sprawling squatter encampments in a lot of developing cities, lacking basic sanitation and vulnerable to eviction. In Hanoi, new arrivals could build houses that didn't have official permission, but often received basic services anyway. Because these buildings were legal, residents then had the incentive to improve them. These were their own homes. They owned them. They could do whatever construction they wanted. So they just kept improving their homes. And this essentially led to a sprawling city with all these, it may not be the most consistent city and it may not be the most attractive, because it kind of looks like crap because you got all these people building their own homes and there's no, symmetry, I guess you could say. The architecture is lackluster, of course.
So what you're saying is that as one of these Chicago area subdivisions, it wouldn't really work too well because all the houses aren't the same style with the same manicured yard and blah, 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 blah. But from the point of view of preventing slums, it's actually been really, really effective.
Yeah. But I mean, imagine a city where you can just move to it, find a tiny piece of land, build your own home. I mean, and then as money is more available to you, you can improve it. It's just quite a different process.
Yeah, well,
you can't do that here.
You can't. No, how are the property lines designated?
There's probably some gray area there. I mean, the property, I'm sure that is, the municipality deals with that. But 20 square meters, not very big. So I'm sure there was plenty of room to go around. And then, if they want to have multiple story buildings, they're subletting and dealing with that type of thing themselves, a lot of the residents. But in this way, Hanoi has essentially avoided slums. And it is by no means a small city. So maybe there's something to be learned there. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people in this country would be terrified of this idea. But,
in the way, isn't it a libertarian paradise? Hey, if you can show up and just stake out the land and start building, it's yours, and then you can defend it. I mean, in a libertarian paradise, it would be with guns, of course, so maybe it would stop working too well.
I bet some would probably call it a communist paradise. But no, it does seem more like a libertarian paradise. But at the same time, you build this home, and the government will supply you with electricity, plumbing, water. So very liberal. Okay, a while ago, we talked about how in the midst of the Syrian civil war, the internet got shut off.
Right.
Now, we speculated that the government did that intentionally. It turns out that, according to Edward Snowden, it was the NSA that did that.
Right. The government did do it. It just happened to be our government.
Right. So they were trying to, of course, gather information. They were trying to gather information about what was happening there through Syria's only internet service provider. That makes things easy, doesn't it? If you only have one.
Hey, in most places in the U.S., you also only have one per city.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. So things didn't go as planned, of course, and they messed up. They shut off the entire internet. I guess the Syrians were more focused on restoring the internet than tracking down the cause of the outage, which they very well could have done. And now, of course, I'm sure they know after this story came out. And I guess in the room, there was a joke after they did this up. They said, if we got caught, we can always point the finger at Israel. That was the NSA saying that. But
clever.
Yeah, incredible. We shut off the internet to an entire country. And this need to know thing, I feel like our intelligence agencies and this needing to know everything mentality isn't too different from that ex-girlfriend of mine who would read celebrity and gossip blogs all day long, and blogs about television shows she didn't even watch, to just know exactly what all the celebrities are doing, what all the gossip is, and what's happening on all those television shows.
There's a difference that, well, maybe at the institutional level, I don't think that individually the cogs in the wheel of these American intelligence organizations have a personal need to know. I think it's just institutionally, the systems that are in place require or encourage the knowing and finding out of all whatever information it is, so that it can be logged, cataloged, and had on file.
You don't think, I mean, at its core, from the start, is this human, I don't know, issue of just needing to know other people's business, wanting to know other people's business, trying to have your fingers in everything?
You're saying that the institutional desire to know came from the personal desire to know, rather than the other way around?
I think it must have started that way.
It's interesting.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I have a story here about beer labels. Apparently, did you watch that video yet?
No, I still haven't watched it.
Come on, dude. You have to watch it. It is so funny. Every beer label in the United States has to pass through one man. His name is Kent Battle Martin. They just call him Battle for short. And he is employed by the Treasury Department's Tax and Trade Bureau. And he is responsible for making sure that beer labels are appropriate. And I find it crazy that 29,500 separate labels last year he personally had to approve. That's 80 a day. And they say he is equally scrupulous with every single one. There's a quote here: brewers and legal experts speak of him in hushed tones, with equal parts irritation and reverence. He's the king of beer. His will is law, said one lawyer who works with him regularly. The lawyer asked to remain anonymous for fear of crossing the beer specialist. There's one dude in the government who gets to control a multi-billion-dollar industry with almost no supervision. Battle has rejected a beer label for the King of Hearts, which I guess was the name of the beer, which had a playing card image on it because the heart implied that the beer would have a health benefit. He rejected a beer called Pickled Santa because Santa's eyes were too googly on the label, and labels cannot advertise the physical effects of alcohol. a less googly-eyed Santa was later approved. He rejected a beer called Bad Elf because it featured an elf warning, suggesting that elves not operate toy-making machinery while drinking the ale. The label was not approved on the grounds that the warning was confusing to consumers. Of course, this is subjective.
I had no idea that beer labels were such a thing.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. What I'm thinking to myself after reading this is, shouldn't soda labels and, I don't know, candy, certain foods, caffeine-related items, shouldn't they have the same process? Shouldn't they be under the same level of scrutiny? I don't think they are.
No, well, we talked about this a little bit the other day in terms of the caffeine regulation, right? So that it kind of came up along those lines.
So one man, this is his job, and it's one bad dude.
Is this a job you would want, Lewis?
Something tells me this might be a two-person job soon, considering the amount of the boom of the microbrewing industry. 80 labels a day? I don't know. I don't know if this is a job I would like. And I don't know if I'd want to be responsible for screwing over small breweries who invest a lot of money in I don't know, a label that they are behind. I don't know. And I would probably be a lot more forgiving than this guy.
Well, but Lewis, rules are rules. If you can't follow them by the letter, maybe this isn't the right job for you. I'm changing my mind now.
I don't want the job. So that's fine. Screw you. But anyway, interesting story. One man, all the beer labels. I don't know what's going on with imports. I don't know if they go through the same process. If imported labels have to be reviewed to be sold in this country. I'm not seeing that anywhere. But we can say with certitude that every American produced beer goes through this guy. Crazy stuff. Thank you for joining me.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.